Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. With me on the show today is Major General Paul Vallely, a great friend, a great American hero, someone with significant military and foreign policy expertise. Of course, we've been watching what's been going on in the last few weeks with Joe Biden, his complete collapse mentally, if not physically, at the debate with Donald Trump. He tried to shore that up just last Thursday with regard to a press conference. It didn't come off well. He referred to President Zelensky as President Putin. He referred to him having nominated Donald Trump as his vice president. I mean, it's really out of control. But one of the things that has not been discussed to any great extent, particularly by the Democrats, who want him gone even more than the Republicans. And it's interesting to watch CNN these days, the Communist News Network. They're doing their best to get rid of Biden. They know that he's a dead letter. He's a definite defeat. Same for the New York Times. Even PBS and NPR are piling on, but he won't leave. And the only discussion and the only point that he makes is, I can beat Donald Trump. And many of his supporters that still remain in the Democratic Party say the same thing. The discussion is who can defeat Donald Trump because he's such a threat to democracy. But there's no discussion about what's good for this country, about what's good going forward. And something that Major General Vallely can talk to us about is the need to have a commander-in-chief who's lucid, who knows what's going on in this very difficult time when we face foreign wars in Ukraine, in the Middle East, soon likely to be between China and Taiwan, which we'll get involved in, obviously, as well, and a nuclear Iran just days away, as well as a nuclear North Korea. So I want to get the general's views on these things, because he truly is an expert. And then give us your views, Paul, also on Ukraine. What's been going on there? Is it an imminent defeat for Zelensky and the Ukrainians? What's likely to occur?
Okay. Well, first of all, Larry, we obviously have a commander-in-chief who has dementia, probably, as one doctor said, a fourth or fifth stage of dementia, maybe Parkinson's disease. He's certainly not mentally competent and even physically competent anymore. So I just wish we had a situation in the United States where we could replace him overnight. But he's very stubborn, always has been. I know when I met him several years ago, he's an obstinate individual. And I think he is going to say, I'm going to stay here. And if you throw me out at the convention, so be it. It's a democracy. But it's so embarrassing. And I think our NATO partners, of course, they just finished the NATO conference in Washington. And they're trying to be as cordial as they can, but they certainly realize that we have a commander-in-chief that can perform at the level that a leader needs to be. Putin sees that. China, Xi Jinping sees it. And then you have Kamala Harris, and she's as weak as can be. She's not sick or anything, but she's not very smart. I would not put her in charge of a McDonald's or a Pizza Hut or whatever, but that's the situation we're in. It's very sad. And then, Larry, on top of it, we have so many incompetent people in the administration. Blinken, for example. We have woke generals and admirals that need to be replaced. We're not capable of fighting a good war now. Re-enlistments are down. And the arms and equipment that we've been sending, say, to Ukraine and to Israel is depleting our assets very much. So I don't have a lot of confidence that we could take on China or whoever that might attack the United States. And then we got 40,000 Chinese or more who've come in. They're bringing arms and equipment in through containers through our ports to marry up with these Chinese agents. We know that. So we're in a bad situation, Larry. And your second question was?
Well, shifting to this question, well, the fact that the only discussion that comes out of the Democrats virtually is who can win.
Right.
It's about what a commander-in-chief needs to do if there's an emergency and what needs to be done. We know that Biden has admitted that at best he only works 8 to 4 p.m., but he's not available otherwise. Everything's getting filtered through his staff and his national security aides, assuming they can get to him and they can wake him up.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. When he gets a call at 2:30 in the morning, who's going to answer?
Right.
Jill, Dr. Jill's going to answer. She'll be right next to him.
Dr. Jill and maybe Dr. Phil, who knows? It could be.
And Hunter, I guess, is in the White House now, as I
But
understand as well.
there's a lot of jokes that can be made, but it's not going to be a joke if we have a
No,
situation where he's got
no.
to make a call. I mean, suppose we've had situations in the last many years where there were indications because of failures in intelligence and
Yep.
communications. You know better than me that we
Right.
may be under attack. I mean, we thought at one point that we'd be under attack,
Mhm.
from Russia. Russians thought we were attacking them,
Yeah.
at one
Well,
point.
I'm not worried about the Russians unless we escalate Ukraine launching weapons into Russia, which are U.S. made, and Putin can take it to the next level. But basically, Ukraine is coming to an end. I think they're going to have to do something about the money that's being shut down. As I understand, they're not getting the money they need now. We're sending out more missiles, I guess, and he thinks he's going to get F-16s. But I think Putin will bring it to a close much sooner than that. And we just can't afford to have a declining NATO. Many of those nations want to end the situation in Ukraine. So we have a weakening NATO. I'm not sure we even need NATO anymore. As far as they're trying to get in and into Africa now and China and the Far East, and that's not the charter of NATO. So it's again lack of leadership, but just to fund NATO, Larry, costs millions and millions of dollars each year, and for what? A gigantic office building that costs over $1 billion, I guess, from what I understand. Salaries for all the people on the staff at NATO, but it's a serious situation in the whole world. And then you have the Middle East, you have Iran. We've got cartels, militarized cartels, just feeding illegals across our border with fentanyl and so on. And I just wrote an article, by the way, Larry. Why isn't our Defense Department defending us against the militarized cartels?
That's
They
a very
need to go on the offense and take the cartels out. And that's what I've written to Trump and provided him a plan to do that.
With regard to Putin and Ukraine,
Yeah.
assuming there is a victory at hand for Putin, will he stop with the Donbass and the Russian-speaking areas, or will he try to take over all of Ukraine, in your opinion?
Well, that's Western propaganda. He has no intention, from my information. As you may well know, I set up the first meeting between Putin and Trump in Moscow in March of 2017. And the feed I get from my intelligence sources in Europe, he has no intention to do that. He'll keep those 4 provinces, and that will be the end of it. He has no intention to take over the rest of Europe. Again, that's all Western propaganda.
Interesting. Well, let's turn our page a little bit here, because what's also interesting is the dynamic of Joe Biden. At some point, he most likely will be gone. In fact, I filed a lawsuit this week, which hopefully will push matters along in Florida, as a Florida citizen and voter, claiming that voters were defrauded in 2020 and they're about to be defrauded in 2024.
Right.
Because it was not revealed that he was mentally and physically incapable of being president of the United States. I also joined his personal White House physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, and also Jill Biden, for that matter, the First Lady, in that case. And what I'm asking for is equitable relief more than damage, to have him removed from the voter roll and to have him ordered to step down as president. Now, to find a judge that's got the guts to do it is a big task, believe me.
Right.
I remember when I was dealing with Obama and his phony birth certificate, they were scared to touch that.
Right.
And it was an issue not really of whether he was born in Kenya or any place else. It was an issue of whether you had to submit, your real birth certificate.
Right. Right. Yeah. And that was documented in 3 different layers by experts, by the way, that birth certificate you saw. And I think you know that it was 3 or 3 levers where they used these automatic technologies to do that, with an image that can be separated and basically analyzed in depth. So,
it was Photoshop.
His real birth certificate never did come out, if he had
Well, you didn't need to know more than the fact that whoever doctored it put in that his race was African American. That term was not used in 1961.
That's correct.
Didn't come into effect until the 1960s, and it was Jesse Jackson who coined that phrase.
You notice he's half white, but he never talks about his white mother. You ever notice that?
True, but on the other hand, he likes to live only with white people, so it's very
Yeah.
Martha's Vineyard and everything else. I mean, he's kind of shunned his own people in a way.
Yeah, I only know he's gay. I mean, that's been known for quite a while when he was in college, and yeah, he's a total fabrication.
But he's the
Total
one behind the
fabrication.
throne here with, so to speak, with Biden. Everybody knows
Right.
that
That's right.
he will call the shots, and eventually uh, Biden will be gone. But
Right.
I think what's happening right now, it's interesting to watch CNN with Paul Begala. I locked horns with Paul Begala many times in the past during the Clinton years, and
Yeah.
yeah, he made a good point just last Friday that it's not like Clinton, after his first term, where he could shift and move right, move to the center,
Yeah.
and gather support, because Clinton's support was very low after 4 years. You can't change your age. You can't change the condition that he's in, the very
That's
poor
correct.
condition. And I think what Begala and others are doing, and I think Hillary is waiting in the wings. I mean, she's sharpening her talent. She's getting her broomstick ready to possibly swoop in. And it's possible that if Kamala becomes the presidential nominee, that you could possibly even see Hillary Clinton as vice president, or
That's
maybe
correct.
even Bill Clinton, because there's no prohibition in being vice president even after 2 terms as president. So there's lots of dynamics here at play. Of course, a lot of people have predicted Michelle Obama may enter into the scene.
I don't
Gavin
think so.
Newsom, who stands for everything but yet stands for nothing.
Yeah.
He, of course, has been waiting in the wings. So let me have your thoughts on what you think is likely to happen, and also on Democrat prospects, because one thing is for sure, that once they come up with a different president and vice presidential candidate, the leftist media, which is predominant in this country, is going to go all out to prop them up and make them the greatest thing since the Messiah. Unfortunately, they're not to be equated with Jesus Christ, but that's what they're going to do.
Now I hear all the money that Biden has in his treasury for the election can only be moved to Kamala. He can't move it to another candidate that might come out of the convention. Have you heard that?
Yeah, I have. I think that's probably accurate to some degree. But if they get a new team, so to speak,
Right.
quickly, there's going to be a lot of money flowing in.
Sure.
Also, as of last Friday, it was disclosed by the New York Times that big donors, in Hollywood and in the left, have put a freeze
That's
on
right.
$90 million that are in the works that they were going to give to the Biden-Harris campaign. But the grassroots support is also dwindling overwhelmingly. The Democratic Party and the left does not want Biden as president.
I'm sure George Clooney's getting a lot of uh, what would you call it? Slap in the face back from all the fundraisers that he had for Biden out in Hollywood, where they committed, I don't know, 60 or $70 million. George Clooney's got to be totally embarrassed, I would think, at that point, because he's pulled the plug on Biden. But I think Biden won't run, and who they're not, they don't have a bench is the problem. I don't know who they're going to pull out of. Newsom is an absolute disgrace, and I just don't see him being the nominee, because I know Trump will just whip him very badly, so to speak, in an election. And same way with Kamala. So I don't know, but the Obamas and the Clintons don't get along that well, do they?
No, probably not. We don't
Yeah,
want to get along with. I mean,
I
you
think there's
remember
a
that
little
Bill
bit of
Clinton.
tension there. So, if you take the scenario that the what was he, a biographer for Biden or something like that, he's come out with a new book, and he has said what you said, that what they'll do is have Joe be the candidate, and they'll bring Hillary Clinton in as the vice president, and then he'll step down and Hillary becomes the president, all legal. But if Biden's running everything and George Soros is funding Obama on everything, how do you mesh the Clintons and then with the Obamas? I mean, that's a real mess.
Well, you remember that back, when Obama ran the first time,
Yeah,
that I think that was what, 2000.
2012 was it?
2008.
Oh, 2008. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
people were
refreshing.
wanting him to put Hillary in as
Right.
vice president, and he didn't do it wisely because he otherwise could have wound up dead. And then she
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
so he
exactly.
stuck her
So
over.
I don't know how they mesh all that together, Larry. I mean, it looks like an impossible task for the Democrats, and it's certainly going to be a mystery of what they're going to come up with at the convention. But it's they can't run Biden. I mean, this guy may has one foot in the grave, and he can't complete a sentence. I mean, it's total embarrassment to America, and at the same time the threats that we have internally in America in the next 4 months, plus maybe an external threat, say from China, who will attack Taiwan and try to bring us into that fray, which we're not going to be capable of mounting any kind of a real threat against China to do that with the generals and admirals we have now. So, and Iran could do anything, but I think the mullahs up there in Tehran are going to have their hands full with Israel. So we'll see.
Well, one can only hope that what will happen. Maybe, hopefully, Saudi Arabia will join in with Israel in some manner, shape, or form, and
Yeah.
really take them out. Because from what I understand, they're only days away from the nuclear weapon. Of course, I believe they already have
No,
some.
they already have it. That's all crap. We know that they have the delivery system in the Shahab missile. They have the guidance system. They've done the nuclear warhead technology with North Korea, as well as with China. So they have the full package to put a delivery system together on a Shahab missile, and they've had that for a while. So don't believe when they say, "Well, we got to stop them from getting it." No, they already have it. And I've
Yeah,
got this some very good sources from Iran.
and they probably have had it for a long time. They probably bought a Russian nuke on the black market. A few, God knows.
Yeah.
But we didn't
Well,
keep track.
Russia's been helping them, of course, for years, and they gave them the Club K system. I'm not sure you're familiar with that, but it's basically a system where you put these containers on an 18-wheeler, or you put them in the hold of a ship, where they can go to about 60 kilometers off New York, open up the hull. The Shahab missile comes up, delivers the mess from the Club K system. They put it back down, close the holds, turn the ship around and go. They put them on also 18-wheelers. By the way, you can Google all of that on and get that information on the Club K system. And we feel that's what they're going to use to some degree with the containers that have been coming into the United States through our ports.
Right. Well, I remember I used to live in Miami, downtown Miami. I live in up the coast now, but there were people coming off containers back then, terrorists
Yeah,
in Miami. They put a surveillance system in. It's pretty porous at the port in Miami. I used to
yeah.
have a condo that overlooked that.
Well, see, they can take those containers, send them on an 18-wheeler to a pre-designated location, say outside of a military base. In that container will be weapons. There'll be ammunition. There'll be cyber equipment and so on, command and control equipment. We know that. And so they can pre-position them for these agents that have come in. And many of those Chinese, Larry, have flown into Tijuana. I think you probably knew that. And they just walk up across the border at the crossing point there in San Diego area. So that's the information I'm getting. It's scary, that's for sure.
And many years ago, when I was at Judicial Watch, which I founded, as you know, Paul,
Right.
I came to know someone named Colonel Lunev. I don't know if you met him.
No, I don't think
He was a defector from the Russian intelligence services. And he revealed, not just to me, but to many others, these suitcase nuclear bombs that were being brought into our country, across the border from Canada. And
right.
of course, you know better than I, but we were doing the same thing in Eastern Europe with the Russians. I mean, we had stuff pre-positioned there if we
Sure.
needed. You wonder how many of them are still out there, frankly.
Well, I think we have a lot still in Europe from what I know. My first assignment was in Germany at the height of the Cold War in the early 60s. And I was an intelligence officer then working with the Berlin command. And at that time, it was really hot, very high intensity between the Russians and the Americans. But I know then on the pre-positioned equipment that we had over there was called POMCUS, pre-organized well, anyhow, it was pre-positioned equipment is what it stood for. And we had part of our responsibility in my unit was to safeguard the nuclear sites in Germany.
Mhm.
And they're still there as far as I know.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it's all there. And that's the risk here, is that we're on the cusp of a potential nuclear war and Holocaust with a miscalculation, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
absolutely.
Now,
And
one of
Trump and
the
Putin's not fooling. He's absolutely tired of getting bombarded by the Western press and Western leaders. And he's a smart man. He's a politician. They keep saying, well, he's a KGB, well, that was years ago. He's very sophisticated. He's very smart. He's working very closely with Xi on BRICS, the new monetary financial system that's been put together. And that's going to reach almost 40 some countries, where they brought in a lot of African nations. So that Eastern coalition, as I call it, is growing and growing, getting more powerful and heavily funded. Saudi Arabia is part of that, by the way. Brazil's part of that. India's part of that.
That needs to be discussed because, among other things, Biden has destroyed the strength of the dollar worldwide, and that's serious long-term implications in international trade. I'm an international lawyer, among other things.
Yeah, they want to kill the dollar, and basically Saudi Arabia now will not deal in petrodollars anymore. I don't know whether you knew that or not.
I
They're
did.
strictly dealing in other currencies for their oil.
Right. Well, the Saudis are very smart. They don't trust us either. Nobody should trust us, given
Yeah,
the way
nobody
we
trusts
behave
us
with
anymore.
our so-called allies, in the past. But here's the wild card, Paul. I want to get your thoughts on this, is that the Democrats are not going to go lightly, okay? And if it looks like they're going to lose, and it does look that way as of this point in time, regardless of whether it's Biden or Kamala
Someone else.
Harris or Gavin Newsom, or even Hillary makes her return to
Right.
whatever, is that what is the potential between now and November 5th of this year for significant violence? What is the potential, God forbid, of an attempt on President Trump? And then factor that in to the day after, assuming President Trump, God willing, is safe and the Secret Service does its job. What's the potential on January 21st, 2025, for this country to go up in flames, for the left to be out in the streets, and something like we've never seen before, whether it's Antifa or whether it's Black Lives Matter or whether it's socialist communist groups or radicals from the Middle East or whatever the case may be, is that they're not going to go lightly. And the ability of Trump to govern, even if he wins, is going to be extremely difficult. Yeah, in my opinion.
Well, if Trump wins, he's going to replace half the generals and admirals immediately and have the generals that he wants on his side. We certainly have information. They're going to be very dirty, the Democrats and their supporters, and create a red flag situation that will then develop into martial law, which they maintain control and not release it over to Trump on election day. So that's all in their dirty playbook. That's what and we know that. So hopefully, and Trump knows it too. And down the line, they know it, that is a great possibility to create that conflict and chaos so that they can stay in power and not permit Trump to take over as president of the United States. But Donald J. Trump knows this as well. So I don't know what they're planning on that side of things, on the MAGA side of things, but certainly it's not going to be good, Larry. I can guarantee you that. It's going to be a difficult 4 months.
Right. What do you think the reaction would be of the rank and file military?
I think the rank and file will support the people. Our special operators, SEALs and Green Beret and Special Forces and so on. I think they'll support the people, but we can't count on the woke generals that they have now, because these are Obama choices, by the way. I don't know whether you recall, Obama purged about 120 senior officers, and you had the likes of Milley and Gordon Austin, come up as the leaders. Well, Milley's retired now, but they have other woke generals that are still in charge. The rank and file, I think, will support the people, and that's what's going to be important. Plus, the Patriot Guards are going to be organized in each county of the United States to work with the sheriffs, who can absolutely set up a posse. Sheriffs can deputize as many people as they want to at the local level. And that's where it's critical, Larry, at the local level.
Right. And I remember that Sheriff Arpaio with his cold case posse
Yeah.
represent. By the way, I brought a lawsuit for him in the last week too,
Yeah.
because
Oh,
he's been defamed as a felon, and that's to tie him to Trump, the two felons, and to try to hurt
right.
Trump
Yeah. You did a great
politically.
job.
Yeah, he's not a
Yeah.
felon. He's a good man, and he was only found liable for a misdemeanor, and he was trying to do his job at the time. But this is uh, this is what we have coming, and I don't think that those people that are out there, not you, not our supporters of
Mm,
Stand Up America, of Freedom Watch, and whatever. I want you to give the coordinates where people can reach you at the end
sure.
of the show here. I don't think they realize that it's not going to be simple enough just to rock back in your armchair, turn on Fox News, and wait for President Trump to be elected. You know,
Yeah.
that's what they want, is that we're then going to face a potential, very, I think, violent civil war.
Civil War, yeah. Well, we got to be alert. We got to make sure you have food for at least 6 months. We feel very safe here in Montana. We got a lot of food. We got ammunition. We got guns. American gun owners who they want, who the FBI wants to arrest as extremists. You know, that's what their whole purge has been there at the FBI. You can't trust the CIA. The governors, by the way, Larry, could do a lot more under the 10th Amendment, federal rights versus states' rights. But we have to be on guard and be prepared because it's going to be ugly, I think. And I wish I didn't have to say that, but all the flags are out there and all the warnings are out there of the possible things that could happen. And again, Donald J. Trump, he knows this, he understands it, but he's going to be very vulnerable, as you've mentioned. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and that may, foretell why all these people are coming in from China across the border and the Middle East
Mhm.
and elsewhere, is that they're not stupid. I mean, they may realize that they can capitalize on Americans going against themselves.
Right.
And
Exactly.
yeah, and that point they step in, okay, and
Yep.
make it worse. And getting back to Obama, regardless of any scandals and crimes he may have committed, his biggest crime was he stoked a race war in this country. He
Oh, absolutely.
divided the races, and he's very smart. He's very
Mhm.
clever.
Yep.
His wife is the same, and that race war continues on to today, and it just gets worse and worse and worse,
Right.
and it's going to get much worse during this campaign.
You know, we point that out. I've got two books out now, Invisible Treason in America and also Beyond Treason. They're both on Amazon. But we connect the dots on everything Obama and the puppet masters have done. And then my next book will be out next week called The Dismantling of America. And that'll all be on my website, standupamericaus.org. Standupamericaus.org. You got to put the US in there. But and also, Larry, all your listeners out there, you can use anything off our website. All of our documents, our videos, our recordings, our interviews are all on there. So feel free to use that because it's a great source of information about what we're talking about today. And the books tie that all together. And on the front page of Beyond Trees, and I would show you a copy here, but I don't have it in front of me. We got Obama and Biden on the front page, on the front cover.
Right. I don't remember how many years it was ago, but you and many others, you can refresh my memory on how many others, retired admirals, generals
Mhm.
in the military, wrote a letter to Obama.
That's right.
Can you refresh our recollection as to what you said? Because it was pretty clear that uh, at least those who actually were true military leaders
Mhm.
were not inclined to let this country go socialist and communist.
Yeah. Well, it basically started with the initiatives that Obama took, which was purging, as I said, 120 senior officers in our armed forces, and then to move towards this transgenderism, CRT, DEI, which came later on, but he fostered it very early with his people. And when he said change America forever, that's what he's done, but he's committed treason. And someday he's going to have to pay for that, as well as Biden and the others that have dismantled this country, dismantled our institutions, weakened us. And it's just a shame. But I would just hope when you read Beyond Treason, you'll get the sense of how all of this has been done and put together. You well know that. but many Americans I talk to still don't connect the dots, Larry. They don't understand what this dismantling has done by the puppets, and Obama's a puppet as well. The globalists just love him. Klaus Schwab, World Economic Forum, that old group. And then you got the likes of George Soros and the treasonous Bill Gates.
Yeah, no, it's not a happy situation. So, we have to be prepared for it. We're not advocating being the aggressors. We are the defenders, and that's our Second Amendment rights will allow us, hopefully, to do that. But get prepared for it. I urge people, basically to arm up, but don't use it offensively. Use it defensively to protect yourself and your family if you need to do that. But anyway, Paul, I want to thank you for everything that you do and have done in the past. I first met you over Extortion 17, the biggest lawsuit.
Yeah, that's right.
The Afghan war.
That was a while back.
That mystery still hasn't been solved. And frankly, it's not a mystery at all. And actually, that case is still going on, if you can believe it or not.
Is it really?
Oh, it's still going on. And we have a default against Iran. And, the judge has been sitting on it for over 10 years, and there's been other factors that delayed it, but it will come to a fruition.
Well, we need courage in America, Larry. We got to be courageous. We got to stand tall, stand up for our country. And if not, we're going to lose it. Because if we lose this election and Trump doesn't get elected, it's going to be very, very dismal in America.
You're right. And so I urge people to support Paul Vallely at Stand Up America. You can give your coordinates again, and also go to freedomwatchusa.org. Contribute to both of us with tax-deductible contributions.
Absolutely. We depend on donations. StandUpAmericaUS.org.
You cannot depend on the U.S. government to do anything for you anymore. I wouldn't even call it a government at this point. It's a bunch of political clowns, court jesters, and criminals that try to basically stuff money into their pockets at our expense.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, thanks, Larry, for what you do.
Thank you, Paul, and God bless you.
God bless you, Larry. Thank you. Bye-bye.
So there you have it. Somebody who knows what's going on, in the military, someone who has a great depth of experience, someone who is still sharp as a tack, that can predict with some certainty what's likely to happen. I want to be an optimist. I think we can be an optimist. With the Father and Son behind us, we will prevail, but we have to do it for ourselves. And I always say at the end of my podcast and the show, God will help those that help themselves. So God bless you all. God bless this country. God save this country. We'll be back next week with another edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Until then, go to freedomwatchusa.org, contribute to our cause, join our Justice League, and pray.